Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. Hi, I'm 25 female. I have an older brother who is married to Steffi, 27 female, and they have a 2-year-old daughter. When my brother and Steffi decided to get married 3 years ago, Steffi asked me to be her bridesmaid. I accepted and helped her out with the wedding. She was generally very picky and made me do so many things for her during the wedding process. But I didn't mind it because I just thought she was being a good old bridezilla. 2 months before the wedding, I was hospitalized for a SIL flare-up, and in the recovery process, I was gaining weight. I recovered well enough to attend their wedding, and I had a great time. 3 weeks after the wedding, the pictures came out and Steffi started posting all the pictures on social media. In no time, I realized that I was in none of the pictures, which was dedicated to the bride's entourage. I called up Steffi to ask her about this, hoping she would have a decent explanation. But she goes on to tell me, "Oh no, see, so after the treatment, you gain weight, right? So in the pictures, it looked very odd, and it was spoiling the aesthetics. So I asked them to Photoshop you out." I was so hurt and so furious because only I know how much I had to suffer during the recovery process, and this just felt insulting. I called my brother up and cried to him on the phone, only for him to say, "You're making a big deal about this. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill." After that day, I decided to keep the least contact I could with the both of them. I'm very fond of my niece, but I visit her only when she's at my parents' place. Cut to 2 weeks ago, I was at the hospital doing my shift as I work in healthcare. Steffi calls me randomly and tells me that I have to go pick up my niece from daycare because she is at a kitty party and can't go pick her up. I immediately said no and cut the call. 3 hours later, I hear Steffi screaming my name in the hallway of the hospital I'm working at. She eventually finds me and screams at me for abandoning her daughter. She called me a selfish prick and that I deserved the worst in life. As she was screaming right next to an ICU, the security dragged her out and threw her out of the hospital. Now she's going around telling anybody who listens to her story about how awful I was. Some people are taking her side and don't see how I could have been manhandling a toddler in an ICU. But mostly everybody is staying out of it. So, am I the a-hole? Update. Steffi and my brother called me so many times over the weeks, which I did not pick up. They both sent me so many rotten messages, belittling me and calling me names. Then they went and complained to my parents as well. When my parents refused to take sides, they screamed at them and called us all ungrateful and selfish. Ungrateful for what, I wonder? Nevertheless, I blocked their numbers and now I'm at peace. They also refused to let my parents see their granddaughter. That's the saddest part. You're not the a-hole, OP. Steffi sounds like a nightmare, and your brother doesn't sound any better either. What she did to you during the wedding was really hurtful, and your brother told you not to make a big deal out of it, instead of comforting and finding a silly excuse to cover up for his wife's terrible behavior. Now, you have the right to say no to her request. I don't understand why I got so mad and upset over this. You should tell your brother also that he's making a big deal out of the whole situation. Tell him not to make a mountain out of a molehill. At least this time, this statement would be used correctly, because they're definitely making a big deal out of the whole thing. Story 2. My wife, 21 female, and I, 27 male, have gotten into this more than once. The first time we were picking up my dad from his house to go out for dinner. My wife and I were only dating at the time. As we approached his house, I asked her to get out of the car and move to the back once we arrived. She acted shocked and disgusted that I would ask her to do this, saying she feels like I'm prioritizing my father over her, which isn't true. I don't really like my dad, but he would be more comfortable in the front. She even cried a little, which felt like such an overreaction. In the end, she got into the back of the car, and we enjoyed the rest of our evening, though she was notably sullen. We never spoke about it again, and a similar situation didn't happen for a while. Now married, the situation has happened once again. My longtime friend moved in with us from across the country, and all three of us were heading out to celebrate when I noticed her opening the door to the front passenger seat. I gently reminded her, don't you think you should be sitting in the back?" She seemed shocked at my suggestion and even asked me if I was serious. And of course I was. She is on the shorter side and my friend is several inches taller than her. So it makes sense for him to have more leg room, right? When I told her this, she simply shut down and silently got into the back seat and started texting on her phone. The rest of the evening she was withdrawn and barely spoke. Once we were alone, she insisted I let her sit in the front seat from now on in our car because it's a matter of respect, and told me that all of her friends think it's weird that I try to accommodate my friend instead of her. This is in violation of our agreement to never complain about each other to our friends. But that aside, I think it's kind of ridiculous to be so upset about where you sit in the car. She told me she was humiliated that I had put her in the back in front of my friend. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I'm wondering if maybe I am the a-hole here. Edit. I guess I'm an a-hole. For what it may be worth, I did not push her into our marriage. If anything, it was the other way around. She was 18 when we met, so I didn't groom her. She has severe anxiety and is a lot to handle, and I just wish she would appreciate all the good I do for her. I feed her, clothe her, and put a roof over her head. But little stuff like this happens and she always starts saying it feels like I don't love her, when that obviously isn't true. Considering how much money it costs to even have her in my life, I'm frustrated and at my wit's end. You are the a-hole, OP. Your wife feels disrespected when you ask her to give up the front seat to people who need it more. And I don't blame her. You make it sound like she's being unreasonable and childish, but she's not. She just wants to sit right next to you, her husband, in a car every time you two go out with other people. Why is that so hard to understand? And let's not even talk about you saying you feed her and clothe her. You should do all those things anyways because you love her and want to take care of her. If you can't do them anymore, let her know, so she'll go find someone who will happily do all those things and still not think less of her. Now for some comments. You are the a-hole in every manner. Someone having anxiety, trauma, and low self-esteem isn't a reason to treat them like a child. When I was only casually seeing my now serious boyfriend, he always insisted I sat in the front seat. And reading your edit, you're not just an a-hole, you're a total dickwad. I hope she divorces your pathetic ass. You need to take some Dr. Phil type advice and read this entire thread a few times and re-evaluate if what you are doing is healthy for your partner. And also, if you yourself are in a healthy mindset. None of this sounds normal in terms of a healthy, functioning relationship between two mentally healthy people. Also, the power dynamic seems way off, shifted too much in your favor and control. I'm also worried about how your wife is doing. She's going to leave you, dude. You sound so self-centered. You admitted to being the a-hole, but then went ahead to talk about yourself and give some sob story about what a hero you are to her. You talk about all the money you spend on her, but money alone isn't enough to show love. And from the sounds of it, I'm not really sure you love her. I mean, you prioritize other people over her. When you truly love someone, you put them first. You are the a-hole. Leave her. She deserves so much better. Story 3. Hi, please let me know because I'm honestly not sure. For context, my university is completely online. I'm male and 20 years old. Okay, last week, a family emergency happened and it required my aunt and uncle to leave their house late at night. I live close to them and they have a baby that's less than a year old. So they called my parents to tell them about the emergency and then called me. They asked if I could come into their house, take care of their baby until they come back. And I was down with that. I've taken care of babies before, so this wasn't new to me. Took my stuff, drove to their house and stayed with my cousin. Now, by the time my morning class comes about, my aunt and uncle haven't shown up yet, which was within expected. They told me they will be back by 1 or 2 p.m. And I had my baby cousin in my lap, setting up laptop for my morning class, and my cousin falls asleep, and I'm like, okay, I can deal with this. A sleeping baby is the best kind of baby. Do not move them. Now, here's the problem. I had a presentation to do, and so my video is off. As I'm preparing to give it, and the professor goes, OP, please turn on your camera. I have a sleeping baby right now, so is that okay with you? A sleeping baby? Yeah, there was a family emergency, so my cousin's asleep on me right now. I don't want to say the details in class, but I can email you after class and supply any proof you need. It's fine, please turn on your camera. So I do, and my cousin is asleep. And I give the entire presentation, and I'm really proud of how it went, because I think I did really well. And I answered all the questions and my cousin didn't wake up. Like, this is the best case scenario. Well, last night, I got a grade for the PowerPoint along with an email from the professor that says she marked me down because she felt the baby was there as a pity prop. And I was attempting to gain sympathy, and if I hadn't had the baby, I would have gotten higher. So, was I the a-hole for showing up with a baby? I didn't think about the pity aspect. Edit. Few clarifications. Yes, I did send her the proof she would have required to see there was an emergency. Yes, I will be reporting and updating. Yes, there are better ways I could have done this, but a stressed and sleep-deprived student isn't normally the best source of judgment. The class was a philosophy one. Now for some comments. No, not the a-hole. You should take that note from the teacher to academics affair. It's inappropriate and out of line, and your grade shouldn't be lower because of a professor's bias. I've been in grad school and had peers bring babies into the classroom and there's no penalty, because you gotta do what you gotta do. Normally, I would be against bringing a baby to class because they tend to be disruptive, but in this case, not the a-hole. Baby was sleeping, it was an emergency, and you offered to leave the camera off. And you told your teacher why. I'm curious what kind of black magic you used to keep the baby asleep for the entire presentation. Babies seem to have a sixth sense for interrupting things. Not the a-hole. I would honestly report the professor. It's incredibly unprofessional and flat out wrong. Your presentation was perfectly fine and we are in uncharted times. They have to be flexible. You had an emergency. If they can't grade you without the baby being part of the equation, they obviously aren't a capable teacher. Who knows how else they grade based on pity rather than what you earn.